Hello everyone and welcome back to Computer Science for Everyone. This time we're going to talk about how to iterate through array lists. If you remember in the previous array list video, we ended up with creating an iterator for phrases, even though we didn't know what that meant back then. Now we know it's an object used to iterate through an array list. Let's see how we can use it. First of all, we need to create an iterator. I'm going to name it ITR because it stands for iterator. And then we can get an iterator from phrases. Let me explain what this means after we import the iterator. Like that. Okay. So we have our iterator object, and this iterator has some methods that we can run that affect or come from the array list, as I like to say it, like the hasNext method. Returns true if the iteration, which is the list, has more elements. In other words, returns true if next would return an element rather than an error. Okay, so what does next do? Returns the next element in the iteration. So it seems like this iterator, as I've explained in the presentation, is like a pointer to the first element of the iteration, as they call it in Java, or the list we're iterating through. And then when we call next, we get the following one. When we call hasNext, we get whether there is one after the current one. There's also a remove method that is used to remove elements from a list. We cannot remove elements from a list without using an iterator. I think these are pretty much all the methods we're going to be using for now. So while our iterator has a next element, we can get the string like so. So what this is doing is that we're getting the next element. Remember that itr.next returns an object. This is going to be important to understand why we have this here. This is called casting, and it temporarily treats something as a string. Because we know that in our list we're storing strings, we can cast this object that itr.next returns into a string so that we can use it as a string. I explained this in the presentation, and this is because all objects, including strings, come from the Java superclass object. itr.next returns an object because that way it can iterate through everything that could be stored in any list. So it can iterate through strings, integers, and stuff like that. So casting it to a string converts this object into a string for this operation, and that means we can then store it in a string variable. Okay, so then we have our string variable that is the next item. And then we can print it. Let's see what happens. Well, sorry about that. First of all, let's remove the rest of the stuff. So we only have, okay, our phrases list and the 3 sentences in it, and then we try to print it. Let's run that again. And there we have it. So we've created the iterator, which is our phrases iterator. And then while the iterator has a next object, we get that object, cast it to a string. This is temporarily treating this object as a string, assign it to the string variable that we create, and then we print it out. So what other things can we do? Let's say we want to do something if the string is bye-bye. We have one of them here, so this is going to run when this string is being iterated over. So what we do is, if the string equals bye-bye, we remove the current object through which we're iterating. Let's see what happens. We're not going to see anything because we didn't print anything. This way we can check. So if the string equals bye-bye, we will remove it. If not, we will print it. So there we have it. We only have hello and something else. You'll have to take my word that this item is actually removed from the list, but we can check quite simply by printing out the size of the list. So first we'll get 3, and here we should get 2. And indeed, there we go. So here we had 3 items, hello, bye-bye, and something else. Then we printed those 2 and removed bye-bye. And then we printed the size again, and we got 2 elements because we've removed bye-bye. This is pretty much everything you need to know about ArrayList iteration. We create the iterator, and then while the iterator has a next object, we get that object with next, we cast it to whatever value our list is storing, and then we can do things with it. So hopefully that cleared out any doubts you could have, but if you do, go ahead and ask questions. I know this is one of the complicated topics on this course, but if everything's good, then let's move on to the next section. So I'll see you there.